Now that we know about the most commonly used decision statements in C#, it's time to look at the other group, the iteration statements. Now, before we look at what C# has on board to work with iterations, let's first understand what iterations really are and what they are solving. While creating applications, there will often be the need to execute one or more statements repeatedly, so in a loop. That will continue most often until a certain condition is met. That condition can be a counter value reaching a certain value, so effectively until the loop has executed a number of times. Another option would be that we keep asking input to the user until they enter a certain value. Then too, we keep executing code until a certain condition is met. A loop can also be that we read recursively all files within a folder and its subfolders. So as you hopefully understand, the concept of a loop is very, very common, and we will encounter them very often when writing applications in C#. C# comes with a few options to create a loop. We have the while statement, the do while, which is a variation of the while, and the for statement. Let's explore these in detail. And let's start with the while loop. It's definitely the simplest one of the three, although they're all pretty easy to understand. We will of course use the while keyword. That was to be expected. We pass in a Boolean expression, so that's the condition again. As long as the condition evaluates to true, the statements between the curly braces will execute. Only when the condition becomes false will the execution stop. That means indeed that we can, from within the while loop, change the state of the condition so that the execution will stop. When working with the while, the condition, so the Boolean expression, will be tested before any statement is executed. Only if it's true will the statements get executed. Once the statements have finished, will the condition be evaluated again, and if still true, they will get executed again, and so on and so on. I think you get the picture. Just like with if statements, the set of curly braces is only required if there is more than one statement you want to execute as part of the loop. Oh, and yes, using a while statement, it's pretty easy to create an infinite loop. If the condition simply never becomes false, your application's execution will be stuck forever in a loop. That is, until of course you close the application. Here I'm using an actual while loop. I'm using a counter variable here named I, and I've initialized it to 0. I say counter, but it's just a regular variable to be clear. Then I'm creating the while loop, and as condition, I'm checking if I is less than 10. If that's the case, which it will be initially, the statements within the while loop will execute, so writing the value of I to the console first, and then increasing the value of I. So I will now become 1. Then the condition is checked again, and it will still be true, so the loop will execute again, until I reaches 10. Since then the condition won't be true anymore, and the execution will continue below the while loop. In total, the loop will have executed 10 times.